Welcome to really our final edition of Virtual Symposium before we go live later today. My name is Jim Kaler, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session where you're going to learn a lot about the sport of NASCAR. But before we get going with Jason Golden, our guest, I want to once again put a special shout out to the MSA class of 2020 who have worked really hard behind the scenes putting on our first ever virtual symposium, and can't wait to get them all back next year because it'll be a dual celebration. Also want to remind everybody that I'm in the process of working with these 30 students on job placements, so if you hear of anything, please let us know. And before we go with Jason, I do want to single out 3 students who are the tri-chairs for this year's virtual symposium. That's Kayla Robles, Christian Greider, and Paige Johnson. They have really rolled up their sleeves and in a short period of time put together a wonderful program. So let's start with Jason. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate the invite, and certainly happy to be a part of this virtual symposium. Certainly some unique times that we all need to adapt to along the way, and hope that we can provide a little bit of value to the lineup of programming. I know I've got some stiff competition with some of the others that I think have participated in this, but happy to be a part of it and happy to support the program. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to congratulate Emilio as well. Much deserved winning the Distinguished Alumni.
Cool. And what I'd like to do for our symposium audience is really share a lot of what you've been doing with our students the last several years on the trip down to North Carolina, where our very first stop on tour is Richard Childress Racing. But before we do that, let's take a little bit of look at your career and your journey. And hopefully I mapped it out in the proper order there, but it's kind of ironic. After Ohio University, your first stop was with NASCAR, if you think about it, with the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And then after some great time in intercollegiate athletics with Learfield IMG and IMG First, you found your way back to North Carolina with Richard Childress Racing. So take our audience through that career, if you would.
Sure, happy to do it. It is kind of funny and ironic that it's been a little bit full circle. So after I graduated from the sports administration program, what's not on there is technically my first job was really an internship at UNC Chapel Hill in the ticket office, working for an alum in Clint Waltney, and was only there for a handful of months as I really was trying to land a full-time position, and was able to, I knew I wanted to be in sales. I did not necessarily have a desire or a need or even my target on specifically working in racing. I just wanted to work in pro or major collegiate sports on the sales side. I felt like I had a knack and kind of the composition and the makeup for a sales position, and applied to several locations. And Las Vegas Motor Speedway was hiring, so was excited to get out there and start to learn the world of NASCAR for sure. But it was more than that. It's a huge facility that hosts drag racing and dirt racing and other special events and corporate functions and those kinds of things, and certainly learned to cut my teeth there, and was a part of a big boom in NASCAR in the early 2000s, and enjoyed it very much, focusing on sponsorship sales and corporate hospitality, track rentals, those sorts of things. And then while I was out there, I had a chance to know some other alums, and you'll see a bit of a theme in this and the power of the program. Another, I think a former distinguished alum, Mike Hamrick, was the athletic director at UNLV, and got to know Mike in the Las Vegas community and the sports community, and went over and joined UNLV as a sponsorship sales person there. They didn't have a rights holder at the time. They were doing it in-house, and so got hired by Mike and another alum, Perk Weisenberger, who was there at the time, inside. And then at UNLV, while I was there, ISP Sports, which became IMG, which became Learfield IMG, took over the rights. And so while I was at UNLV, I kind of transferred from in-house to ISP / IMG / now Learfield. And so spent 9 years total in Las Vegas, enjoyed my time there very much on the sponsorship and corporate sales side. And as I transferred into the ISP IMG side of things, Mike Hamrick was a very good mentor of mine, and a guy I looked up to a lot. And he made the move from UNLV to Marshall, and I actually ended up following him and started to run the Marshall property in West Virginia for ISP IMG. And then from there, took another promotion and managed the Midwest region out of the Ohio State Columbus office for several years as well. So a lot of stops along the way. With, I guess it's kind of par for the course when you're working in pro sports, and certainly on the sales side. And really, while I was working at IMG College in Columbus, Ohio, as that regional VP, another alum got a hold of me who was an employee at Richard Childress Racing, Lauren Hoffman Street. And they were looking for someone to come in and work on the sales side and the corporate sales side. They wanted somebody that was not, quote unquote, a NASCAR lifer, but certainly knew about the NASCAR side and motorsports, and certainly also wanted somebody that had some experience in other forms of sport, and so seemed to have kind of the right background for them and what they were looking for. So after a lot of conversations and frankly, some heavy recruiting on RCR's part, I ended up joining that team. And now I have been on the RCR team for, I think I've worked for Richard now 5.5 years, and I've enjoyed it very much and gone through and learned quite a bit along the way, and now run the sponsorship and revenue side for the entire organization.
Great. Great to hear that all roads do lead back to Athens, Ohio, because I was classmates with Mike Hamrick, who was a 2007 distinguished alum, and also Perk. So some good mentoring early in your career there. Yeah,
for sure. Mike is still a friend today. Has been had a huge impact on my career, and enjoyed working for him. And again, moved all the way across the country to kind of stick with him. So it is the power of the program and the power of the alumni network is real, and I enjoy it very much.
Cool. Well, let's get to a little bit more about Richard Childress. And when we were down there, I was just fascinated to learn his story and how he's really started with like a $20 investment. So I'll throw that to you and let you run with it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's some of this you've seen before, obviously, as we share with the students on the Tobacco Road Trip. But Richard Childress Racing and Richard Childress really have a unique story. And Richard is one of those only in America kind of stories. And that's, in fact, he gets invited to give a lot of speeches and kind of motivational speeches. And that's typically the theme of his speech. Only in America could a boy with $20 and a dream make it to where I am today. That's his opening line. And he's from North Carolina, was a racing fan as a young child, and grew up watching some of his racing heroes at a little short track called Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and was a fan of theirs. He eventually got a job there selling peanuts and popcorn in the stands, and wanted to become a racer one day. And finally, he and another fella actually each chipped in $10 and came up with $20 to buy an old taxi cab, and that was his first race car. They actually flipped a coin to get to see who would drive. He won the flip. He said that was probably the best coin flip result he's ever had in his life. And so it's very much, Richard is very much an everyman, a man of the people, and kind of that blue collar, blue jeans and cowboy boots mentality. And that certainly permeates throughout our organization, and really is probably what has spoken to some of the success and the heritage, and how he resonates so much with fans, are unique, only in America kind of story. That's for sure.
Cool. Well, now he is in NASCAR's Hall of Fame, but as he was getting his career going, he was fortunate enough to team up with a driver by the name of Dale Earnhardt, and that really kind of amplified the whole business.
Yeah, for sure. So initially, Jim, he was racing himself. Richard was a driver and really drove to moderate success. He would tell you that as well, but knew that he wanted to make a go of this and make a career out of owning a team and participating in NASCAR. So he was able to hire a young driver named Dale Earnhardt, and as they sometimes say, the rest is history. Certainly, he and Dale helped put Richard Childress on the map and created the legions of fans and the position that they're in today, both of which obviously Dale Sr. and Richard have NASCAR Hall of Fame careers, have won several championships and races, and really helped cement Richard along with RCR into the hearts of millions of fans across the NASCAR landscape for sure. And we celebrated in 2019 our 50th anniversary, as a matter of fact. So we've had a lot of staying power, a lot of success over the years, both on the track and in the boardroom. And Richard's relationship with Dale is very special, and his relationship with the fans is very special as well. And a lot of people recognize that, and is what has allowed us to continue to forge forward and not just rest on our laurels as it relates to the technology and the resource that we put behind our organization. Jim, you've seen it firsthand along with the students on the tobacco road trip. It really is quite impressive, needless to say. And we do all of that, obviously, with the support of our corporate sponsors and our partners in NASCAR.
Nice segue, because you are in a sport that without sponsors, you're not going racing. And I think our students are used to, I think sponsors in stick and ball sports and college athletics, but once they leave your shop, they get a much greater appreciation of the importance of sponsors in NASCAR and really the multitude of Fortune 500 companies that are involved with the sport.
Yeah, it really is. It really is unique. And even myself, when I worked on the, at the track at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, not on the team side, I don't think I fully grasped how important sponsors were to a NASCAR race team and the way we're funded. And when you think about it, that's how people identify with the cars on the track, right? People root for the Caterpillar car or the Coca-Cola car, whatever it might be. And that's really the only sport where they do that. They don't, they root for the Dallas Cowboys, not the Dallas Miller Lights in football. But for us, they identify with that brand and the brand that's on that car. And so because the way the way we're funded and the way the financial structure looks like for a NASCAR team is really unique. It's much different than, what we call the stick and ball sports. If you're a professional football or baseball or basketball team, you've got a lot of lines of revenue, not just sponsorship. You've got ticket sales, and you've got concessions, and you've got merchandise, and you've got TV and radio and other media rights. All of those are forms of revenue for the sport, for the franchise. But in NASCAR, it's a little different, right? We don't own or control the tracks, so there is no ticket or suite revenue. Almost all of the TV money doesn't go to the race teams; it goes to the racetracks and some league. So, and no concessions and those sorts of things. So a lion's share of our money, of our dollars, of our revenue come from sponsorship. Fully more than 2/3 of our revenue come from sponsorship. And because of that, our fans know that, our fans recognize that. They know that without sponsors, we do not race, we do not exist. We must have the sponsors to operate because of the financial structure. And because of that, we've got super, super loyal fans, and some of the most brand loyal fans in all the sports, which is really important. We've had that for many, many years. And it's just because of the unique makeup that a NASCAR team has and the way we are reliant upon sponsors. You think about and look at what a car, when you think about a car and what it looks like, it does identify with that brand. And as you can see there, the number one sport for sponsor loyalty for many years, that's compared to all the other major sports. And it's part of the secret sauce to make sure that we can continue to command large dollars and large budgets to continue to race at the highest level. The brand loyalty among the fans and among those that participate. Jim, I think you mentioned earlier how many Fortune 500 companies are in this sport, and many of them are in it also for the B2B, and there's loyalty amongst those that are also kind of in the club, if you will, on the NASCAR side.
Yeah, and might just take this moment to talk a little bit about what the immediate future might look like, races without fans, but I got to believe your fans are going to push TV ratings to a record high as the sport comes back.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. And so, we have lots of different partners that are from all walks of life that are sponsors of ours. And certainly we do think if we get a chance to get back racing on television, even without fans in the stands or some of the VIP guests in the pits or the garage area, that certainly we anticipate that'll be a shot in the arm as it relates to television ratings and viewership and interest, and probably frankly get some fans that have not watched races before, certainly haven't done it in a long time. So that's an exciting part and a piece for us. There are two sides to that coin, though. We have a couple of partners that are in our portfolio that are not necessarily consumer facing and more on the B2B side. So it'll be a challenge for them if they can't have some of that experiential opportunity and chance to host and VIP hosting at the track. So we do think there will be an interesting uptick, certainly initially, as it relates to television, and if we're one of the first live sports back. We've already seen some of that in this break from the real racing, and during this social distancing program, we've been iRacing and esports, which is certainly a little bit out of my purview, but we've had a handful of iRacing events telecast on Fox and Fox Sports, and some of the highest ratings that esports have ever had. We've had a couple races with more than 1 million viewers to watch our iRacing events. So we do think that there is a need and some pent up demand for live sports and live sports programming. So we're excited to get back, and we think we'll tap into that fandom.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about the demographics and really what NASCAR fans look like, because it's a very attractive group for brands to connect with. Sure.
Part of, and I'm glad you say that, part of what we do whenever we meet with potential partners, we do a little bit of myth busting, right? There are certain myths and certain stereotypes associated with NASCAR from yesteryear, but I think that's one thing that is important. That is why there's more than 140 Fortune 500 companies that participate in NASCAR. It is a valuable demo. It is a very brand loyal demo, and they are a demo that are consumers for sure. It's a much more equitable split than most people realize on male-female, roughly 60-40 on the male-female fandom. The average household income is certainly higher than what most people would probably anticipate. A third of them have children in the home. And then one of the stats that we like to, this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but 60% of the fans of NASCAR live outside of the Southeast, right? Certainly there's Southeastern roots and the tie back to those many moons ago that were running moonshine, but it's grown so much more beyond that. And that is why when we share some of these stats and other data points with brands and corporations that participate, it does become a very valuable target audience and a very brand loyal audience that are good and good consumers of our product and certainly of the goods and services of our partners.
Let's talk about the behind the scenes business that ties back into your sponsors. And I was delighted to see, about a year and a half ago, Lauren really got more involved in the content creation for RCR Racing, and what that can mean for your partners.
Yeah, it really is one of the most important things for us, and probably frankly for everyone, right? It's such an area that's emerging, and our organizations and our campus and our facility are rich for it, right? There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes to build our race cars and to tune our race cars and get them exactly right before we head to the racetrack to try to perform at a high level. So it creates a great backdrop and a great place to tell stories and to build some content. And when you think about that, we certainly view ourselves as a technology company as well as a race team and a good marketer and seller of products and goods of our partners. But most other companies view themselves as a technology company that want to have speed and efficiency and reliability and all those kinds of things that we do when we're building our race cars. And the content piece helps drive our product and drive the sport and certainly drive the message of RCR 24/7, 365. And as you can see, there's a couple shots there. That's on our campus and in our facilities, where utilizing and capitalizing upon the primary sponsorship of the car and the car that's on the track and helping to drive that storytelling opportunity and make real, impactful, rich content that resonates with others and that engage with others is a big part of that. Like you said, Lauren Street on our team, an OU alum, has really taken the bull by the horns, and we continue to grow that. And we have that ability to use that, frankly, nationwide, well, worldwide as well. Content's a big part of what we do. And frankly, after the primary sponsorship on the car, it's probably the area that is talked about most from our partners and areas that garners the most attention and interest to continue to drive value.
Okay. Another big part of your sport that I think a lot of our alumni and students would know is like, okay, placement, product placement, signage, not product, but really signage. And there's a real art to the science of branding a car. And one other thing I might ask you to talk about, you're not just building your cars at RCR, but you also are building cars for other race teams. So could you talk a little bit about that at the end, but up front, just talk to us about branding and what's important to the sponsors.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now we'll get to our technical alliance piece in a minute, but you can see the diagram there on the screen. So, primary sponsorship is the one that kind of takes the predominant theme and color and look of the car, but certainly other sponsors along the way that also participate. And, we race 36 points races a year. Very rarely is it the same primary sponsor for all 36 races. That was kind of the norm many years ago, but really, frankly, now, because of the price point and the cost of participation, those sorts of things, we have to parse out those 36 primary races with different primary sponsors along the way. You want to position the branding as best you can for television exposure and other things like that. You see this is an image of the Dow car, but you also see images of other corporate partners on there, including Bass Pro Shops and American Ethanol and AAA and other locations that are really what we consider associate positions on the car. And we go through this process throughout the year to ensure that we have the right kind of placement, that we're doing the right kind of things for camera visibility. We subscribe to several different valuation tools and Nielsen and social media and Social 24 and a lot of other resources that help us drive and build that value to ensure that we are capturing our partners and positioning our partners literally and physically as best we can on the car for the maximum exposure in television. And for example, you see the Dow car there, but there could be other times in which Bass Pro Shops or American Ethanol might be the sponsor. It would have a different look. It would take the theme and look of Bass Pro Shops or American Ethanol, and then Dow would revert to one of those kind of associate positions, maybe behind the wheel or in front of the wheel. So it's a huge jigsaw puzzle as we put that together. There are different times of year, seasonality, geographies that are important to partners, and plugging all those in and making a sponsor a season-long schedule work for all of our primary partners is a lot of heavy lifting involved, needless to say.
Yeah, and Dow is a classic example in sports marketing of a successful B2B sponsorship. Could you talk a little bit about the relationship with Dow and how they've been able to leverage their sponsorship with you?
Sure, and it's very much a B2B driven program for sure for them. They're not necessarily a B2C company. They're not really worried about logo recognition and those kinds of things, but their sales team utilized this program to drive conversations, to host and to entertain at the track, and then also utilize RCR and tap into our technology and help us. It's a little bit of content, but certainly is a proving ground for them to help us from the technology side. We did a lot of safety testing with them and crash testing with them, and our team has been on the forefront of safety and technology. And so their energy absorbing foam, for example, was co-developed with us, and that is now used and mandated by NASCAR in all of the cars in the circuit and on the track. There are other things that they've done as it relates to, and some of it more proprietary, but helping us with fuel efficiency and speed and safety and trying to lightweight different parts of the car to ensure that we have that we're performing at an optimal level. And Dow then uses that, and their sales team utilize that to say, okay, we've helped solve these problems and helped create a solution in the high rigor of NASCAR. Let us do that for your company, right? Whatever partner or customer that they may have. So driving that technology helps, and making those technical alliances help. And then that's a good segue into, Jim, you had mentioned at RCR, we're a lot bigger than most people realize. We have 15 buildings on our campus and 400 employees. Most people are kind of shocked to hear that when we talk about it, because we're also a vertical manufacturing operation. We build our own race cars and we build our own engines, not just for RCR, but also for other race teams. Because over the 50 years, we've been able to develop the resources, the people, the expertise, and the knowledge to build race cars. And it's very capital-intensive sport, very expensive sport to participate in. And so there are other race teams that don't have all of the infrastructure, that don't have all of the people or the resource that lean on teams like us to build cars for them and to share information and technology and engineering and other research and development with them. It helps us because it becomes a revenue source. We've already got the people, the expertise, the equipment, and the machinery, and we can put that to use and lease cars and lease engines and sell technology and sell engineering and other R&D pieces. And for them, it's much less capital intensive than they were if they were to go out and hire their own people and buy the own machinery and have all the proprietary information. So it's really a unique piece. On any given race day, we'll have our 2 cars that are RCR branded, but another 6 or 8 cars in the field that are really cars that were for large part built by us and then and our customers of ours. So it's a unique and interesting way to do it. There are customers through the week and our competition on the weekend, we like to say.
Right. Okay, so one of the things that I loved about your pitch deck was connections and how brands and sponsors will use the sport of NASCAR to build meaningful relationships that really provides a solid ROI.
Yeah, for sure. And Dow and frankly Caterpillar both, some of 2 of our biggest partners, really have a great blueprint for this. Like I said before, they're very much B2B focused, but being able to provide can't buy it kind of experiences, being able to provide the access at the racetrack and around with some of our, celebrity, the owners and drivers and those sorts of things, really helps create a differentiation for them. Dow, for a large part of what they do is a commodity, right? They're a chemical company. They've got numerous competitors, but they want to find ways to differentiate what they do. And making those direct connections and making that opportunity and those can't buy them kind of experiences to strengthen the relationship between Dow's business units and their sales teams and their either current customers that they're trying to grow or certainly new prospects that they're trying to bring on board, same with Caterpillar and their dealer group, really utilize the connection piece. And the access at NASCAR is unlike any other. You see a photo there of Richard and Austin with some guests on race morning, but we have guests on pit road with the cars during the national anthem, getting their photo taken and with owners and drivers literally moments before they fire the engine and are driving 200 miles an hour. And you're just not going to get that at other places, right? You're not going to stand on the field just before the game and high five Tom Brady and get your picture taken with him, not just a few minutes before they start playing. So the access is really quite unbelievable. The connections that you can make and the impact that you can have with our experiential and hosting opportunities really are second to none.
I think that ties back into your fan loyalty because NASCAR drivers as a whole do more meet and greets, love and hugs than any professional sports league could ever dream of.
That's for sure. And then with us, even Richard, that takes it a step further. Richard Childress and Richard Petty are probably the 2 most recognizable owners in NASCAR. And so just as many appearances and personal appearances and endorsements and speeches by our drivers and our owners. So it really puts us in a unique position and certainly allows us to kind of leverage and utilize that opportunity.
Okay. I want to take this moment before, if I think of great moments in sports ad history,
sure,
it had to be not too long ago that this team was celebrating winning the Daytona 500, which is, in essence, it's your Super Bowl. So share a little bit more about the Bobcats in the picture, because I don't want to steal all your thunder here.
Yeah, that was an unbelievably exciting time. And Daytona is such a unique and special place for Richard Childress Racing because they've experienced, frankly, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows at that place, right? So we were fortunate enough to win the Daytona 500 just a couple of years ago with Austin Dillon there. But yeah, think about Dale Earnhardt raced there for years and years and years and years and won many races and events there without winning the Daytona 500 until he finally did near the end of his racing career. And we've won that race several times now. We, being RCR, have won that race several times. But it really was special and unique to get Austin Dillon back in the famous number 3 car back to victory lane at Daytona. And it is our Super Bowl. It is our biggest event. All of the points and kind of pay the same, but I consider NASCAR a little bit like golf in that we have several majors, right? We have several major events, and certainly this is our biggest one. And it's unique that we kick off the season with it, but it's a lot of fun. And then you see a picture there. We had a great time that night that led into the next morning, I would say. But in the photo, you see myself and then Colleen Oberly right in front of me, and then our driver, Austin Dillon. And on the right-hand side, of course, in Victory Lane, that's Lauren Street as well. An unbelievable night, an experience that we'll never, ever forget. We all received our championship rings from Austin Dillon that year, which was quite exciting. And it's funny, that was Colleen's first race with us. So I told her, if they're all like this, then you're going to go really far, really fast with this place. But such an unbelievable event, a crazy, fun experience, and one that I'll never ever forget.
Well, I promise you that Colleen would bring hard work, but also a little bit of good luck. So it's a great story to share. And
she did deliver. That's right. She did deliver. That's for sure.
Well, and then I don't know that too many of our alums would know this, but Lauren's husband's pretty involved in your organization as well, right?
That's correct. So yeah, her husband Andy Street has worked for RCR for several years, and in fact is actually has worked on several teams and several organizations, and worked with Kevin Harvick as an engineer as he was coming up, and now has this year in 2020 is the crew chief for our NASCAR Xfinity Series team. So that's quite an accomplishment for him, and certainly think that there's a lot of upside for Andy and what he does, and that's been a great addition to lead our Xfinity Series championship efforts this year.
Cool. We'll give them all our best.
Yeah,
all right.
absolutely.
So some closing questions. We're going to have a little bit of fun here. So these are quick hitters, but outside of NASCAR, your favorite sport?
Outside of NASCAR, favorite sport to watch is probably college football. To play, I like to play golf when I can, but certainly enjoy. My kids and my wife are big college football fans.
Go back to Athens, Ohio, and share with us where you lived during your undergrad days and your graduate days.
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah. So I went to Ohio U as an undergrad as well. So spent 5 years in Athens and loved it very much. My freshman year, I was on South Green in the dorm. Sophomore year, I was on West Green. I think it was called Wilson Hall. I'm not even sure. On West Green in the dorms. And then lived in some of the beautiful student rental houses there near Uptown. My junior, senior, and grad school year, I lived on State Street for a couple of years, and lived on Washington 1 year, just in one of those crummy old rental homes with a couple of other roommates and buddies along the way. I loved my time in Athens. It was very enjoyable, and always enjoy getting back. I'm going to miss not getting back, obviously, this year for Symposium.
Well, real quick, favorite place to grab an adult beverage on courtside?
Well, there's plenty of options there. I don't think you can go wrong, but I guess I'll show my age a little bit. We spent a fair amount of time at the time it was called the Junction, right? It's now called, I think, the J Bar or something else, but we spent some time at the Junction. We spent some time at the Pigskin before it looked like what the Pigskin looks like now, and a few other places all along the way. But we had an enjoyable time, and certainly would frequent the local establishments when we could.
Okay. Looking into your crystal ball, what sport will grow the most outside of NASCAR? So we'll pull NASCAR out during the decade of the 20s.
Great question. Hadn't thought about this before, but I think just maybe from personal experience, and I have two young boys. You mentioned them earlier, Brady and Bryce, 5th grade and 3rd grade, and I think I'm going to have to say soccer. I think it's going to continue. MLS has been on an upward tick for several years now, and I think the level of participation amongst our youth continues to grow and continues to be part of that. And I think as that becomes more the norm, and as those generations get older and older and have a greater affinity for soccer, I anticipate that'll continue. The only other thing I would say is, the emergence of esports. And how we're going to see how that continues to evolve. I think it's a little early to know for sure what's going to come of that, but I think those two certainly have upward trends over the next decade.
How about the legalization of sports gambling and how it might help the sport of NASCAR with TV ratings?
We certainly think that it will. All right, there's been a lot of discussion around that, and it's the opportunity for in-race betting and for other kinds of opportunities to make to make bets on that as there's more of a focus on that. I think will be very exciting. It used to be simply just could kind of bet on who was going to be the winner, and is Jim Kaler going to win? He's 10-1, and Jason Golden's 15-1, those sorts of things. But now they're talking about matchups and in-race segment winners and group winners versus other groups and these sorts of things. So I think the opportunity for real-time betting and real-time odds and lines to change within the race, and the opportunity for mobile betting from your living room or from your easy chair with your mobile device, I think is certainly exciting. And I do think there's going to be a greater focus on and understanding that there's some more immediate return and instant gratification on the opportunities to bet. Like I said before, if you just bet on a race winner, you did it in the morning and then you had to wait 5 or 6 hours to see if you won. But if there's real time during race betting and other kind of lines and other things offered, I think that will drive interest in our sport, not just our sport, in all sports, but I certainly think it'll drive it in this sport.
Okay, last question. One piece of advice for both our professional MSA students and our MSA students of 2020 as they get ready to continue their growth in some cases, and in other cases break into our industry.
Sure. So mine would be just not to limit yourself or be too narrowly focused on where you want to end up. When I walked onto campus in Athens, I never would have guessed in a million years that I would have spent a lion's share of my career in motorsports or NASCAR. Just would not have done that. And so, Dr. Kreutzer once told me when I was considering the first job a job to take out of college, he said, remember, this is your next job, not your last job necessarily. And it certainly has been a part of my, part of what I remember as I go through this process. So yes, I know it's great to have a goal and to understand where you want to be. And if you've got a place that you want to strive towards, I certainly get that. But I do think you should have an open mind related to what types of industries or even shoulder industries within the sports world might be able to help get you there. And you're never going to be able to completely dictate your path from the time you graduate to the time you retire. So have an open mind, understand what's out there. Nothing replaces hard work and integrity, that's for sure. And this is a small industry, regardless of, what sports in general is still a small industry. So make sure that you do it the right way and uphold the reputation of the Ohio University program.
Right. Jason, a couple of hours from now, Emilio Collins will be going live as this year's distinguished alum. Would you like to give him a quick shout out?
Absolutely. Emilio, congratulations on winning this year's Charles Higgins Distinguished Alumnus Award. Certainly well-deserved and impressed with where you've been on the NBA side, and certainly now we are with Excel. And looking forward to what you have to come. I'm very sorry that we couldn't be there with you in Athens to celebrate. But cheers to you, congratulations, and look forward to our paths crossing again soon.
All right, Jason, I want to thank you on behalf of all of the students and our faculty and staff at Ohio University. It's a real honor to have you on our Alumni Advisory Board, and we really appreciate what you've done over the last several years to add the tobacco road trip and take it to a new level. But today, I think we've been able to take some of our other alums behind the scenes of NASCAR, and I want to thank you.
Thanks, Jim. It's been fun. Certainly happy to participate and happy to support any way I can, and look forward to getting back to Athens again. Who knows when, hopefully sometime soon, and certainly hosting the students in next year's tobacco road trip at Richard Childress Racing. Thank you very much.
That concludes this session with Jason Golden, and stand by. You're just a couple hours away from the live portions of Virtual Symposium.